Well, hello. You know what? I'm in moderately rare form today because it's somewhat early in the morning. I'm a little shaky from the previous night. Let me just tell y'all. Sometimes you realize that your life is literally poop. Lots of poop, so much poop. There's going to be a little potty talk this morning. Just, I'm in a very potty mood. I can't even tell you guys. I don't talk as much about what's going on with the Reynolds home life. You know what I'm saying? Lots of other questions that people are asking me, very little of which have to do with what it's like raising twins. We're like 8 months into this endeavor. You know what I'm saying, y'all? Those of you that don't know, check this out. My name is Nathan Reynolds. Hello, it's nice to meet you. I have a burgeoning, enlarging family all the time. A year ago, my family and I were living in an RV in a driveway of a wonderful family and friends. Thank you guys. Shout out to you, mighty Barber family, mighty Barber clan, wonderful people. We were living in an RV, tiny little rectangle. We traveled all over the country. It was quite a vibrant and wild, exotic lifestyle, let me tell you.
Probably.
You're such a man right now, honey. Look at you.
Oh, no, you're just wait. Oh, she's picking leaves off my back while I'm deadlifting.
All right, you got this.
Get it back up. Thanks, honey.
That is awesome, Nathan.
Oh, it's awesome.
Oh my gosh. Check this out. We have a deck, you guys.
I built my wife a deck in a day.
Woo! This is great. Oh my goodness. I love it.
You know, you've gone full Linenite when you're administering to the fire and burning bamboo and sticks and it's sweltering. So you know what? Time for the turban, man. It's time. I'm shaky like a leaf. I'm feeling pretty trepidatious right now because if you didn't know it, linen, superb for shedding heat. Like nothing better than shedding heat. But man, you can't take fire in your lap and not be burned. Remember? So I'm bathing in myself in sweat. Problem is my body's not quite used to this level of heat. It's okay.
I've got morsels of food.
I've
got head wrap. I pruned
chips.
Hundreds and hundreds of tomatoes over and over and over again in this shirt. And now, it didn't survive. But it's gonna survive the fire.
Fire!
Should we put some willow in yours, Avi? Let's do some willow in yours. This is nice.
That's pretty. You believe?
We did it! The Reynolds are roadbound again! We're rolling in linen this time. And our kiddos are bigger. And they're riding together back there. Hi, Naomi. There's Juju. Their sisters are riding up the dinette now because we got rid of the couch. Feels good. Feels good to be roadbound.
It's also poopy at times too, because black tanks are no joke. So get rid of them. If you're going to do that lifestyle, dump the black tank. Get a composting toilet. Change your life. Fertilize the world. You can pour your pee on all kinds of stuff. You'll be like a little puppy out there fertilizing the trees. People will love it. They'll be completely confused as to why you're dumping this noxious yellow fluid all over everything, but you'll grow beautiful, incredible, fertile soils everywhere you go. You'll be leaving a tiny little imprint of life. Yes, your life is not waste. It's good stuff. Anyways, I was battling freezing hoses and trying not to be overcome with the constant struggle of everyone is in my space all the time. Because it's like that tiny lifestyle. You know, the glorified, beautiful Instagram version of it. My family didn't live that lifestyle. We tried. It didn't happen. It wasn't real. We were chasing the wind. You ever read the book of Ecclesiastes? Dang, maybe we'll read Ecclesiastes today and just groan. All of life is futility. It's the chasing of the wind. That's what my family's doing right now. We're chasing wind. We're chasing the wind of sleep, of rest. Like my child, people are like, I know there's lots of different perspectives on how twins are. We hear people who talk about their twins and we're like, that sounds amazing. They're like, they were so wonderful. We met this guy. It's cool because now we're in this total, like, unique, peculiar little tribe of people that are, you don't know unless you've done the twin life, you know? We have this dually Bob stroller. We load the babies in, one in each chute. I'm not talking fighter pilot style. I'm talking like aircraft refueling style. I don't know why my entire life breaks down to analogies of an aircraft, but I spent a lot of my early years memorizing encyclopedias of airplanes, just like every single airplane. I wanted to be able to identify every airplane from the ground. Maybe other people probably had a better interest in teaching me to desire these things. I think I was persuaded to memorize every single aircraft from a distance at a glance and every vehicle. I started doing this thing when I was driving around where I just memorized every make and model of every vehicle. I wanted to be able to identify every make and model and year of every vehicle that I saw driving around. It's still there, a lot of it, but it's all like a little retrograde now. It's all like 2001 through 2005. So anyways, random little pieces of information. As it is, we have this tiny little stroller, the Bob. It's the best. If you can get a Bob, y'all get a Bob. Don't mess around. We go off-roading with this thing. We can load our children into it. We can load one of us into it, and it will power down, man. We had one that lasted us 5-6 years. Then it got mold, along with everything else in our life, and our life was completely ruined. But we didn't know we were going to have twins a year ago. We thought my wife was pregnant and just sick all the time. It was really bad. And so we never got an ultrasound. We never did the midwifery clinic. We didn't go down any of those roads. We went down the trusting in Yahuwah to be our midwife, and my wife and I going down that. We have a video on our channel that's called Deliverance Has Come, our unassisted birth story. It's powerful. It's ridiculous. We almost died. My wife almost died to make that video for you. I'm back on the bottle here. Hold on. This is my morning blend. This is Yaupan, Gotakula. Let's see. This stuff right here. Let's get you in there. Gotakula. It's good for respiratory tension, GI, ulcer, cognitive function. Because my head's just full of poop. God, there was so much poop last night. Dadgummit. I'm wearing white today with this like hope that I won't be stained yellow within the course of the next 6 hours. Odds are not good. Odds are not good. Anyways, we were out at the store rocking our little babies in there. Stroller, and this man looks at us and just smiles so big, and he's like, "You have twins?" And we're like, "Yes." Some people are nasty right then. They're like, "You must have your hands full." And I'm like, "Yeah, with blessings and exhaustion." You don't want to cry too much in public. People get concerned when you're wearing an animal hide and crying and wearing a sword at the same time, so you got to lock that down. Anyway, sleep debt's real. My wife's a champion. She's been giving me a lot more sleep than she's been getting, taking care of frontline infantry. Gummit. Anyways, this guy's like, "I had twins." And we're like, "Oh, sweet." I'm like, "Could you tell me what is the single best piece of advice you would have for somebody who's in this stage of life?" He's like, "Oh, just enjoy it. It goes so quickly." I'm like, "Not fast enough. Not fast enough." I always say that, and they're always startled. I'm like, "It's never fast enough. They don't get bigger fast enough. We can't get through this phase fast enough. It's a nonstop 8-month nightmare." Trauma states. They still talk. Anyways, he had 2 sons, and he said they were wonderful babies. And we hear this occasionally. Like, the majority of people who have twins talk about how wonderful it was, and it wasn't that horrible. We're like, I don't know what everyone else is experiencing. Our twins are exactly opposite of each other. Let me just tell you, we got a boy and a girl twin, Abraham and Pearl. They're like staggered out incrementally, just far enough to be like one of them is teething. And you're like, any of you who've gone through the teething phase, you understand your life is hell. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I'm talking about Gehenna, the biblical place we're talking about. Fire, the worm. It's just like, that's how they feel, and they make you feel that way. You know what I'm saying? Because you just start to get out of this phase of like colicky. We went through that whole insane rigmarole, and our baby's just puking perpetually. I could roll in right now endless footage of my baby's puking. Just puke in every circumstance. Just puke, puke, puke.
Mommy, should it be my turn now?
Let her finish, baby, please. Okay.
Things nobody told you when you were reading the Bible and thought about twins. You're like, wow, Isaac, congratulations. Rivka had twins. They hate each other and want to kill each other. Do you ever think this is what Isaac was like? Holding the baby and Rivka's trying to clean the house. Chelsea.
Wait, sweep the tent.
She's trying to sweep the tent.
Sweep the tent.
I have no idea. All I know is everything I ever thought I knew I don't know. Not everything. Just enough sleep debt and utter frustration. Makes you wonder. Maybe they didn't always have hired servants. But boy, I would love a hired servant right now. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. I'm in a moderately horrible headspace. It's fantastically bad for my family. He's doing great.
That was like a whole season. We were trying to figure out enough formula, some kind of formula with goat milk. We were trying to make goat milk. We tried to make our own. We had all kinds of problems. My wife like nearly seriously died from the mold. She still is like 70%. She's probably about 70% back in health.
Crazy.
How you doing there?
Not good.
Yeah, that's
Just
the
trying to. I have the
That's-
window
you're gonna
open.
pick a prize
I'm trying
after.
to
That's the prize bucket.
cool myself down so I don't throw up.
How's pregnancy?
Now
This has been the hardest thing, the hardest pregnancy I've ever had.
It'll be the end. It takes 2 hours.
It's been incredible testing, and it's been one thing after another. Just physical
Giddy up.
physical challenges to overcome. I think I'm seven and a half months pregnant right now, 28 weeks. I don't even know if that's 7.5, whatever.
Who
In my
even
mind,
knows?
it's 7.5. I have a new cough that just sprung up the other day. Mucus out of nowhere. I'm having hot flashes, nausea, diarrhea, achy joints all over. So this is probably just like a flu or some kind of just basic sickness. But on top of that, just having sciatic pain, back pain all over. Every single joint of mine hurts. I have one linen sock on because I'm trying to help my ankles to feel better because my ankles are in so much pain right now. And but then I got too hot, so I took off the and I drank a tea, and I have this heating pad on my back because I was trying to have my back feel better, but then I think I got too overheated, and then I felt nauseous, like I was gonna throw up. So it's just like this. It's just a battle. It's a constant battle. I didn't sleep last night. I had horrible insomnia and just slept terribly. I woke up this morning and I just asked my daughters if they would pray for me, and I just cried. I just sat on my exercise ball and just cried, and they just held me and they just prayed over me. And then Nathan came out and he's like, "Oh, honey, what's going on?" And I just was crying and crying and crying and crying.
Oh, girl.
Some days I wake up and it's just so hard and I just cry. I just cry and I'm just so uncomfortable. I'm in so much pain all day long. And then other days are great. I'm having so much pelvic pain, which I have had with all my babies, but I have to wear this like pelvic girdle to hold up, to hold up my belly and strap everything in and support it, because if I don't, my back and pelvis just ache. They just absolutely ache. Every step I take, they just ache. So it's been quite a doozy. But every day is an opportunity to overcome and endure and try and stay positive and remember that the trials are only for our good. They're only ever for our good, because they refine us in a way that only going through something like that would. I'm working on my endurance right now. And in 2 Peter it talks about how, chapter 1, it talks about building up your faith in righteousness, and from righteousness to knowledge, knowledge to self-control, self-control to endurance. I feel like I'm at that stage right now of endurance. And then it says endurance to reverence, which is the fear of Yahuwah. And then from the fear of Yahuwah, you go to brotherly love, brotherly affection, and then from brotherly affection to love. And it's made to, the trials help to perfect our faith. in him. So even though it's hard, I'm trying to just endure. Because I want to get to that next phase of just fear and reverence of him alone. And not letting fear of any of these ailments, any of these physical challenges make me afraid to give birth, because it's such a battle of the mind. I feel like this whole pregnancy has been a complete battle of the mind right here. Battling off that fear. That's a stronghold for so many women. Fear of childbirth, fear of dying. Fear of not being able to overcome. It's such a battle of the mind. And it's a daily surrendering of that fear and laying it down before him, so that we fear him and him alone. So that's where I'm at today. At 7.5 months pregnant. It's a long road, and it's...
Jean, grab your bowl out of the trash.
I still have a long road to go.
Grab your bowl out of the
But one
trash.
day at a time, that's all I can do.
I need to get your food. And grab my bowl that's at the table.
And so she could not produce enough breast milk for these babies, and their latches weren't super awesome in the beginning. So we were just on the struggle bus. Then we were doing lots of goat's milk. And so then all the puke just smelled like fermented feta cheese everywhere. So we smelled like feta. Our house smelled like feta. Everywhere we went, our van smelled like feta. We didn't have a van then. We were driving around illegally in a tiny little 5-person car. Yeah. The Reynolds do all kinds of things that are slightly on the fence of rule breaking. But we had to do what we had to do till we could get a minivan. You know what I'm saying? It's real life. Sorry, I'm going to be a little all over the place. That's what it's like inside here. But he was telling us how wonderful his babies were, and how it was such a joy to have them. And he just loved them. He said they were so hilarious. He said they had their own little private little baby language. They would talk to each other when they would just play together. Now, it was really interesting because that very morning, I take a lot of like the early morning shift from like 4 a.m. on. I'm on duty. So it gives me like some time at night to do these interviews and these shows and all this stuff. And then I get some chunk of sleep in there, and then I'm full of poop and babies. And anyways, but that very morning I had seen Pearl and Abraham sitting with this pile of toys just around him because they're crawling around. Pearl's not as much crawling. Abraham's crawling like an absolute wild man. He's wants to touch everything. We never had a boy before. So this is like, we feel like we have a puppy, like literally, like we have a little puppy crawling around, follows us around and just climbs onto things. He's starting to pull himself up onto stuff and use stools, drag stools over to places, open drawers. Like, we had daughters. They didn't do this. They really didn't. They just wanted to be around mom basically exclusively all the time. And they just kind of sat there and they crawl around a little, but not much, you know? They're very vocal, very communicative, very chatty girls, really, really chatty children. But he is into everything, you know? He's a wild he's like a tiny little lion that's just ready to roll. It's exciting. And it's just different. But they were sitting down together, and it was like for an hour. They almost always poop at 8:15. It's just like legendary. Directly on time, like somebody's got a stopwatch on their brain and their bowels. They were sitting there playing and cooing at each other, making noises at each other, talking, like holding toys. And I was like, they're totally talking to each other. It's amazing. They're like talking to each other. Like they really do have this own little tiny little language, and it's really fun. And he said that was like one of his favorite things for him. He's in his 60s now. He said it was one of his favorite things just to watch his little boys handing toys back and forth to each other and just talking. And he said they would just be laughing at each other. He was just explaining to me just the wonderful reminiscence that he had of raising twins. And then he said that over the course of their life, you know, it was like an absolute joy. It was the best children that he had. He absolutely loved it. And he said that one of his sons later on in life, you know, he died. And so his twin was left without his brother. And it was just devastating, absolutely devastating. And he ended up losing a couple of children and just was reflecting on the good that he had with them, the wonderful beauty that he had experiencing life with his children. And he didn't have them anymore. He had some grandchildren now, and That was his life. And it's really interesting when we go around with these babies, how many of the older generation just love to stop and talk with us and they're just fueled by the babies. They smile so much at them and they're just like, so, ah. And here we are at the exact opposite end of that spectrum. I walked around the store the other night and I watched these other parents that were wrangling little children and they look exhausted. We're so exhausted. Like it's so wearying. For those of you that are like wanting to have children, or maybe you don't, and this is a video that you're going to use to justify not having children, you can do that. Totally. I understand. It's intense. Like it's crazy difficult. Raising children is the hardest thing I have done voluntarily. Harder than the military, for certain. For certain. Because the military, there was this certain point after so many months of trauma-based mind control that they relinquished, you know? But our children are like non-stop. We had like a month of sickness, so it's just snorkels perpetually raining out of their faces and vacuum chambers trying to suck out their noses all the time. You're like just desperately trying to get them so they can breathe enough to drink and without like gulping like a drowning man in the sea of Araba. Just like, what in the world is going on in our life right now? Now it's just poop. I don't know how else to describe my life other than poop everywhere. Like last night, middle of the night, 4 a.m, wake up, dead sleep. Like I was dreaming. I was dreaming that I was smuggling myself on out of like a prison colony. Like a colony. I'm not talking like a prison place, like a whole colony. There's just people, like a tiny city that had been turned into a colony. I was smuggling my way out in the vegetables. And I was hiding inside a potato sack. And I was like, I'm going to sew my way into this potato sack. They're going to load me onto the produce bus that's going to market. And I'm going to get out of here. And I did. Problem was it didn't go to market. It went on a barge. And then the barge got offloaded onto a tiny ship. And then that tiny ship had a little under storage bay area. And I slowly snuck my way out and was looking out in this little porthole. I could see dolphins. I was like, and then I opened my eyes to a poopy covered child. Like my child was covered in poop. Do you know how much poop can come out of a child? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It goes out to their armpits. Think about this for a second. They poop with enough velocity to shove it into their armpits. From their armpits, it travels to their elbows. From their elbows, it goes back down to their toes. So then they're crawling around in their onesie. And there's a trail of poop all over. That puppy dog trail is poop trail. And it's dark. And I use red light. Oh my. Let me teach you something about my flashlights. I love flashlights. This is my night core. I rep night core. I'm not a representative for them. I just wear it all the time and I use it and I bet my life on it. Night core. There you go. Light up the night. This is their P18. I'm battle testing this once again. This light failed me one time 4 years ago and I never touched it again. I was like, you're out. It didn't do its strobe. Let's see. You ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just strobe you. Ah! That's the super disorienting strobe effect that it'll do. I was trying to do that at cars oncoming traffic one time and it turned off in the midst of it. The battery was not dead. It failed. There was a contact sensor problem. It was not working properly, so I didn't trust it. Anyways, but I'm back to it because it's a very compact version of a full 18750 flashlight battery, one of my favorites ever. I like it. Lots of light, decent throw, but this function is all what I'm about. I'm all about these little red light buttons. Because at night, I try to retain my night vision and I try to keep my babies from getting stimulated by white light like this style. They don't need any of that in their life. So I use this. Problem is you can't see golden yellow poop. It's invisible in red light. It's invisible. So I'm walking around with my little red light or my headlamp and it's all red. And so everything that's wet on the floor I think is puke. And you don't know any better until you suddenly turn on the white light again. And then you see the carnage. And you see it's on you. You see it's on them. You see it's on the floor. You see it's on their sibling. You see it's on the toys. You see it's on that little bumbo thing. You see it's everywhere. And it's just poop. That's your night. Welcome. Welcome to the poop show. It's bad. It's so bad. So then you change this crazy creature that's screaming now. Now they're screaming because there's so much poop that they can develop a diaper rash. You betcha. When they poop 12 to 15 times in a day, 12 to 15 times, poop everywhere. Anyways, then you change their pants. You're like, you're welcome. I changed your pants. Hose them off in the sink. Yeah. Best place for it. Trust me. Kadosha sink. Set apart a sink to it. Just cut it off. Set it apart to it. Wash them in the sink. They're screaming the whole time. Red light still, but you got to turn it to white light. So now it's white light. You're holding this screaming, wrinkling, naked creature. You got them all cleaned off. You get them, their coconut oil, their butt. You put a diaper back on them. You put a new onesie back on them. And within less than 3 minutes, kid you not, go out. I'm going to make a bottle for him. I'm going to give him a bottle. I'm going to come back in. He's screaming again. And I'm like, why are you screaming? Why are you screaming? But I'm back to red light, so I don't know any better. So I pick the boy up and I'm holding him. I'm like, I'm holding you. You should be chill. But he's not. And he's still screaming. And he's wriggly. I'm like, dang it. I got to make your bottle, dude. I don't want you to scream and wake up the rest of the house. So then there's more crying. So I put him back down in the other room, finish making his bottle, come back in. It's been less than 5 minutes from the previous poop. I switched to red light. Carnage again. Dadgummit. Poop everywhere again. There's no time at all. Just poop again. Poop everywhere. Poop all over himself. Somehow poop is on the outside of the diaper, on the flap, and then up to the shoulder blades. Again. This is all in a matter of minutes. Like the diaper is fitted properly. Let me assure you, I've changed thousands of diapers. Diapers changed properly. Poop is everywhere. Now we're back to the scream fest, back to the sink, back to the hose. Poop everywhere. Poop is clogging the drain of the sink, so now I'm squishing poop down out of the drain. Told you there's going to be a lot of poop talk, you guys. My life is full of it. Get him hosed off, dry it off, back to it. Round 3. Let's go, son. That was 30 minutes of my life this morning in the dark. I'm still a little shook up, clearly. Then this morning, it was the exact same thing. Rinse and repeat. 8:15. I'm not joking. They poop again everywhere. For some reason, Pearl has it up to her tiny little elbows. Well, Naomi was pushing her around in a basket that she makes out of our clothes basket. It's cute. It's super cute. But she had her in this bumbo seat, which made it just high velocity feces just comes shooting out to her elbows. So then Chelsea needs a little help back in the hose off section of life. There's that. Oh, and Jubilee is just feeling like crud and battling all kinds of crudziness. Please pray for my family. Good gosh. Pray for us. All I'm seeing is the color neon yellow. Fevers, temperatures, red raspberry leaf tea, corn silk, urinary, pee, poop everywhere. That's my life. Let's read Ecclesiastes, shall we? Let's go to the depths of sorrow, remorse. I don't know why, but our twins are super difficult. One of them wakes up. Abraham, I'm not exaggerating, will wake up 30 times in the night. Easily. You got to go resettle that guy constantly. It's endless. He's cracking 4 or 5 teeth out of his face. No shocker there. He's just drooling all the time. Then that's why they get diaper rash a lot of times, because they're just drooling incessantly. They're just drinking gallons of their own saliva. This is just aside from all the other stuff we do every day. You know what I'm saying? So some of you, I'm sorry if I'm not back to your emails in a quarterly manner. Sometimes it's been 5 weeks. People are like, you emailed me back 3 months later. I'm like, you're welcome. It's the first time I resurfaced for oxygen again. I wasn't covered in poop. I'm doing my best here. Bear with us. Bear with my burdens here. I'm not trying to dump my burdens of poop on you. I just need someone to listen. The book of Ecclesiastes. This is Solomon's recap of life. This was probably a lot of his poop talk. Know what I'm saying? Ecclesiastes. Where are you guys? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. How you overcame these struggles in the early young baby life. I know many of you were there. I know you've been there. Clearly, some of us were pooping on our parents, some more than others. Abraham seems to be just the thunderous cannon of challenge, more or less, most consistently. Pearl is like a tiny little velvet sauce of delightfulness. She's elegant. She's got poise, like her sister Jubilee. She's just constantly sweet. She's very sweet. She's very smiley. She's got a very gummy smile. It's cute. I'm choosing this day then how I shall live. I'm choosing to remember the good things and not just completely drown in the despair. This is like doesn't stop, That's just the reality of it. We are 8 months in, and we are still 8 months in of just difficulty. Difficulty. It has not been easy at all. There have been very little breaks of any kind of like everyone's doing good, sleeping soundly. Very few of those. Handful. I don't know if my wife has slept more than 6 hours. Like a 6 hour, maybe 5 at once for 8 months. She's been kind to get me more sleep than that. Super gracious, sacrificial like crazy. Pray for her. She needs it. But she's been cold plunging all the time, and that's been making a huge difference and changed her life forever. Here you go. There you go. This is chapter 3. For every matter there is appointed time, even a time for every pursuit under the heavens, a time for poop and a time for play. Doesn't say that. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. Well, that's peculiar. A time to kill and a time to heal. Let's just talk about that for a second, because this book on killing, the psychological cost of learning to kill in war and society by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. This book has some interesting points about healing time, a time to heal and a time to kill. Because in order to kill, you have to go through a season of conditioning to prepare yourself for it. But he talked about the difference between Vietnam veterans and World War II veterans and their rates of trauma disorders after the fact, things like PTSD that we would call it today. He tried to talk about the differences of why we saw so much major psychological problems for our veterans of Vietnam versus those from World War II. And one of the things that he discussed in there was that there was a unit mentality in World War II, where entire units trained together and then shipped out, deployed together, and then went into combat together and then returned home together. And so during the course of those events, they were able to bond, but they were also able to help reinforce each other in the decompression season, because that time to heal is a serious thing. And if you circumvent that season, if you don't go through that period of time and you go through the environment of super intense violence, super intense trauma, without the safety net of decompressing with those that could understand and relate to you, it messes you up very severely. And you're not as able to manage your problems later on. So in Vietnam, there was this selective draft service that was initiated. So people were required to engage in, if you were not familiar with this, 18 to 25-year-old males could get drawn into the military through a draft where they would select numbers based off all kinds of variables. But they would have these literal, like a lottery drawing of where select individuals were drawn in, required to go into military service, not voluntary. This is like consignment. You've been like, you're going in, son. They didn't necessarily have a pistol to your brain as they drew the numbers, but they had their own ways of inviting you in cordially. So they were required to go to training, and then they were required to ship out and deploy. They did 1 year, 365 days. It was like a year tour over there. So what happened is you had a lot of soldiers being brought in individually, being taken to a very chaotic, traumatizing environment. And in Vietnam, it was also different because the front of where the combat was happening was all over the place. It didn't have the same designated front lines where it was the most intense that you could then withdraw a soldier who had spent too much time on the front line for rest and recuperation and kind of come out of that a little bit. It didn't have that because they could still have active war zones being waged, like a guerrilla warfare being done to constantly demoralize the enemy. And then as soon as that year was over, that soldier individually could go from active frontline combat to being back in the United States around civilian life again in a matter of hours, few days at the most, a lot of times. So they would go from that decompression phase, whereas soldiers that were shipping back from Europe were often on boats and they had weeks, sometimes months together with their unit to rotate out. They even had dedicated hotels where families could come and they could see their wives and their families, still be around their units, still be around their buddies, and they could be reintroduced with their family members. There was a very different environment that greeted them when they came home. There was ticker tape parades. There was a gratitude from the people on the home front. Whereas during Vietnam, There was persecution. There was hatred. There was a anti-war. People were screaming at soldiers, spitting on them, calling them baby murderers, calling them a lot of really horrific names, and it really traumatized them. It locked them up with shame, locked them up with a lot of shame. And even as I was reading this, I was thinking about how there's this commandment in the Torah, the loving instructions of Yahuwah. If you've never read the first 5 books of the scriptures and you're a believer in the Messiah, I assure you, you'll find him from beginning to end. If you go to the beginning of the book, you should read it from there to hear the story of who the Messiah really is, because you'll find him all through the Torah. And one of these loving instructions from our Father has to do with soldiers or people that are involved in killing, and they're supposed to be outside of the camp for 7 days. And as he was talking about this period of time for healing, after the fact that you've engaged in violence, you've engaged in bloodshed, the killing of another person, that this 7-day period was there for you to do exactly that, for you to reflect on what you went through, to joke about it, talk about it, grieve about it, to go through that process. But you'd be together like the sons. When Saul's body, here, I'll just read it to you. Here's a little example of it. A little snipe a little story out of you. For those of you that haven't read the book of 1st and 2nd Samuel, read it constantly. It'll invigorate your life and draw you right out of the depths of despair. Poop talk. It's working, right? You see? It's a living and active book. So anyways, King Saul, you know about this guy? He was very good looking. He was a head and shoulders like above all the rest of the people. It's kind of what the people wanted to be their king. They're like, yeah, he'll be the best. Problem was Saul liked the praise of men more than he liked to revere Yahuwah. That's a serious stronghold. He clung to the power when King David was clearly becoming the choice of king. He did not like that one bit. So he spent 40 years. The vast majority of that time, he spent every single day and night thinking of ways to kill King David. That's it. He was committed with a tormenting spirit from Yahuwah that drove him mad, crazy, vengeance, revenge, avenger, until he was killing children, moms, dads, babies, whole entire families, tribe, all the priests of Yahuwah at the city of Nob. It was bad. He recruited this guy, Doeg the Edomite, the dirtiest dude in the entire scriptures. You know what I'm saying? He was like the worst of the worst. Doeg the Edomite is the Illuminati. You want to talk about like the Roman Catholic Church and the great whore of Babylon. Doeg the Edomites. Not a joke. Dead serious. Anyways, King Saul. He does a lot of dirty, shady, horrible things. And along the way, he visits a witch. Terrible decision. Don't go see those tarot card reading people. I'm telling you, people with familiar spirits going to infect you. Spiritually transmitted diseases are real things. There's more problems with that than any other communicable disease that they're talking to you. They're lying to you about them germs. They don't tell you the truth about them demons. I'm telling you. Dead serious. Anyways, he goes and talks to a witch because Yahuwah won't answer him anymore. He's been cut off. So he has her conjure up Samuel, dead prophet, righteous man, Nazarite, incredible. Consider it strongly. Read the book of Numbers, chapter 6. Anyways, Samuel comes up. He pronounces judgment on King Saul. He's like, you're going to die. You're going to be with me, and your son's here tomorrow, son. You're going down. So he does. The next day, he dies. He gets killed in the heat of battle with the Philistines, the very same people that David conquered. You know what I'm talking about? When David didn't have fear, he sure got it sooner or later. Anyways, King Saul gets killed. The Philistines do what the Philistines do. After battle, you go and strip the dead, right? It's like some of your war trophies. Like, I win, son. I won. It's a real thing. I'm going to strip you of all of your stuff. It's part of like my rights as the conqueror. So they go in, and as they're stripping the dead, they find King Saul and his body with his armor on. Okay, this is a big deal because the vast majority of soldiers did not have the same armor as the king did. So they identify him. Meanwhile, the crown had been taken back to David. Somebody else. That dude died for it too because he lied. He's like, I killed King Saul. Aren't you happy I killed your enemy? David's like, cut him down, you young men. Young men, by the way, were like 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. That's a young man. Boys stop being children right around then. Something to consider. You don't have children if they're over the age of 9 and 10. They're not. They're young men. They're young women. Consider it strongly. It will change the way you parent. This world has something that's called the artificial extension of adolescence. It's a design feature that's built into our horrible indoctrination system, the prison system of our public schooling, compulsory education. They're designing it to extend our adolescence. Instead of your 14-year-old child, being a child, they should be a young man who's fully capable of taking over, literally running your house for you, watching your back for you, doing what you do. You should be replicating yourselves and your children. tremendously, immediately. Start at 2 years old. My 4-year-old uses a knife in the kitchen proficiently. Very sharp knife. Very proficient because we train them early on because that's what they're there to do. That's what we're all here to do. We got to learn the life skills to be successful. Naomi right now, instead of me putting that on the babies for this nap, she's doing it. She's fully capable of doing that. It's because we train her. We instruct her. She gives us life back to us. Our children are not supposed to be a burden. They're supposed to be a blessing. Right now, my children are full of poop and uber burdensome. Constant burdens. But they get better. That being said, they steal his body. And this is what happens. Check this out. This is the very end. The very end, by the way. And the next day it came to be, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Shaul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent word throughout the land of the Philistines to announce it in the house of their idols and to their people. And they placed his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. And the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Shaul, and all the brave men, Gibborim, arose and went all night, and took the body of Shaul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan. And they came to Jabesh and burned them there. And they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree at Jabesh, and fasted for 7 days. See, that's them obeying the Torah. These are upright, righteous men. And what you do when you handle the dead bodies, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be outside the camp for 7 days. When you deal with the dead, you go to battle, you go through all this hell, you go through trauma. You're supposed to have 7 days. You set yourself apart, fasting. Like, you're giving your body physiological time to heal and decompress from this horrible event. This is critical. This is something that's so critical. And those of you that have experienced death, those of you that have been in battle, conflict, ongoing, perpetual abuse, trauma, you need a time to heal. You need a time to heal in an environment where the society doesn't persecute you for it. The difficulty that many people run into that start talking about things that they've gone through or they've experienced is our culture, or the family, the friends, the support system they currently have does not want to deal with it. And so instead they persecute the person who's coming out and talking about the traumas that they've been through. And what happens is that multiplies the trauma. If they've got a horrible trauma already on one side of the equation, how people respond to them amplifies that. So you can either negate it by handling it with kindness, compassion, gentleness, friendliness, being a counselor to them. But if you don't, if you become adversarial, you're multiplying the effect of the trauma later on. And this is what gets people stuck so often and traumatized in an ongoing state. So there's wonderful truths that are in the scriptures that we find people of modernity figure out. And they're like, wow, go figure. The Father who designed us and created us knew what was best for us. And he gave us this book as a guideline so that we would know how to handle these things. Should any of you go through these experiences, consider strongly why it's beneficial to take a week. Decompress. Be around people who understand what it's like to go through what you've been through. And it'll help you. That's why I'm talking to you guys right now anyways. Because you know what? I know that through this microphone, I can reach out to a lot of twin parents out there and other people who have been with young children in a way that I just can't. We know 2 families personally that have had twins, but they have not had the same experiences we have had with our babies in the baby phase. So it's quite difficult, but it's for our good. How you doing, Jubilee? Good. You good? It's good to see you up and at it. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for battle and a time for peace. What does the worker gain from his toil? I've seen the task Elohim has given to the sons of men to be humbled by it. He has made it all beautiful in its time, even the ages he has put in their hearts, except that no one finds out the work that Elohim does from beginning to end. I know that there is no good for them but to rejoice and to do good in their lives. and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is a gift of Elohim. I know that whatever Elohim does is forever. There's no adding to it. There is no taking from it. Elohim does it that men should fear before him. And whatever is has already been, and what shall be has been before. But Elohim seeks out what has been pursued. Then again I saw under the sun, in the place of right ruling, wrongness was there. And in the place of righteousness, wrongness was there. Oh. I said in my heart, Elohim judges the righteous and the wrong. For there is a time for every matter and for every work. You know, that's a super grievous reality. The places where they're supposed to find the greatest healing, the greatest restoration, the hospital for the sick and the weary and the oppressed and the demon possessed is filled with oppression. It's filled with those that persecute the righteous and they abhor obedience. Super disgusting and discouraging over time. There's a lot of people who I'm talking to right now who have left the church for good reasons, for understandable reasons. You have seen hypocrisy rife within it. You have seen a lot of very, very failure to look at the truth and preach the truth, failure to actually speak what is publicly, politically incorrect, politically ill-advised. There's a lot of people, I understand there's still some very zealous, beautiful fellowships, churches, places of refuge that are out there. And some of you may have found those. They are marvelous and they are rare. Let me tell you, we traveled 150,000 miles across this country over those years. We went to many different fellowships. We've been to many different churches. And you know what? We have found rampant corruption in a vast majority of them. The vast majority of them. There's this time, let me just give you a, for instance, one of these situational experiences of my life. A few years ago, we were living down on a farm in Florida. Migrant workers, dead serious. Like orphan child, family on the run style. Like this was early on, before we had like a lot of any real support. You know what I mean? It was rough. We were living on this farm. People did not know who we were, our background, or anything else. We were just other people that were co-laboring there. And we'd been there for a few months, probably 2 or 3 months at this point. And Naomi was like, Daddy, I want to go worship. I just want to go worship. And she was wanted to just twirl and dance and worship and be around worship music. And I was like, man, that's super sweet. We should try to find somewhere. And so we looked up different fellowships and congregations. And we found like a messianic congregation that was in, this was outside of Fort Myers, Florida. And we're like, all right, we're going to go. You know, we work like animals 50 hours a week, like laborers, physical hard labor. Like I've never worked hard labor like that before in my life. Never. It was intense. So we had a couple days off. We had the weekend off. And so we were like, let's go. It's Shabbat.
All right, y'all.
Go ahead.
We're just going to do a quick, 48-hour recap because we haven't even made it a week.
It feels like a week. We're ready for Shabbat. We're tired. We've been working hard.
We still got a couple days to go. I can't even think about that yet.
One more day to go.
One day. Today, though, I just got to say something. This is, without question, some of the most satisfying work I've ever experienced. Like, it's real. I pruned today tomatoes, and I was therapeutic. People say that, and you're like, oh, yeah, these, like, hippie people. And you're like, no, I just pruned, like, 900 tomato plants with love and care and intentionality over and over and over again. And it was wonderful. Like, I prayed, I thought my own thoughts consistently for hours. Nothing else. And it was wonderful. There's nobody else out there.
We sweated a lot.
We sweated. It is more physically demanding and exhausting and painful work than I've ever done in my life.
And we live in a sauna. That's called the environment of Florida.
Subtropics. It's real. We came from like perfect fall weather in Alabama and northern Florida and Kentucky to overwhelming swampiness in all kinds of areas.
Yes.
Everywhere all the time. It's insane. But I love it. And we ate papaya. That was one of the most delicious pieces of fruit we have ever tasted. Look at her face. Chill. Tell them about the papaya.
I've only ever had one papaya in my life, and I bought it at the grocery store, and it was absolutely awful. So I never tried another one since until a couple days ago. And this was hands down one of the most delicious pieces of fruit I've ever eaten. I love fruit. And it tasted like a cross between a cantaloupe melon, which I love melon, and a mango. And it was delicious. And there are an abundance of oranges. Everywhere you walk around, there's oranges on the ground, and we can have any that have fallen off the trees and are just laying down. So we're going to try to have a juice-a-thon tonight. Naomi, what do you think of the oranges?
Good.
Are they so good? She'll just be walking around the property. Today, Naomi snapped off a piece of kale and just ate it raw right after she picked it, which was awesome. Was it good? How was the kale? What did it taste like?
Well, my friend picks it for me.
Oh, Annika picked it for you? How did it taste? The kale, Nay. How was the kale?
Good.
Good.
Was it good?
Now, Mom.
We also have
Good, Mama.
a baby in the corner, but I'm not going to show you that. Anyways, life lessons to be learned. A man is to work by the sweat of his brow. Like, actually. Like, I think most of everything that has ever been made in civilization is designed to keep us from that curse. But it's something you need, because then what you get is the satisfaction of, like, a well-earned reward.
I love
And there's-
fruit.
I do too. And I was so exhausted. I my heart is pounding in my head. I'm losing weight like beyond fathomable reason. And I stood up and thought I was going to collapse because it's so exhausting. And I walked over to a citrus tree. What is it called? Navel Bell citrus tree.
Sweet bell.
Sweet bells. And I picked one of these things up off the ground that looked almost like not good at all. And it was, I'm not even joking you, the best orange I've ever had.
You eat it.
Oh. I've gone feral. And I like instant fuel. Anyways, I'm like happier than I've been. I can't even say it. This is one of the most satisfying experiences to go through, but definitely the hardest thing we've ever done. For many other reasons. There's other babies. There's little squawky male squawkies up
turtle
here.
mom.
Turtle bomb's right there. Anyways, life is good out here. We're rolling with the Reynolds, and now we're farming with the Reynolds.
This big
Yeah.
guy.
Yes, I can, and we're gonna juice.
I want Mommy to cut this big guy.
Let's do it.
Mommy can cut this. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no, I'll get it.
Okay.
There's a little help. Anyways, life is good here at the Reynolds
So
farm.
we went down, drove like 50 minutes. It's a big deal to take young baby. Jubilee was like 6 months old. So we were in the poop phase. You know what I'm saying? 5 months old. Lots of poop. Never easy. Jubilee was pretty easy comparatively. That's for sure. But it's a big endeavor. Any parent knows this. It's a big deal to go anywhere. So we get to this little Messianic congregation. It's in like a strip mall. We go inside. And people greet us, and there's a couple guys at the front. They're like super friendly. They're like, "Hi, how are you?" You know, we're like, "Oh, good." They're just getting started. We're like, "Sweet, we made it in." It's pouring rain outside, dumping, deluging, like monsoon level rain outside. We're like, "Sweet, we made it." And go inside. Naomi's getting so excited. She's already dancing. She's already wiggling. She's like so pumped. She's like, "Yes, it's gonna be great." We go inside, and we get stopped kind of right at the door, right as you go into this little. It's a building with just a room that's being like partially repurposed for this. It's not like a church, you know what I'm saying? We go in, and the guy stops us at the door, and he's like, "Hey, you want to put on one of the kippas? You know, this is those tiny little hats you see those people wearing." He's like, "You want to put this on?" I'm like, "No, thank you." And he's like, "Here, no, you got to put this on." I'm like, "No, thank you." And he's like, "You need to put it on." I'm like, "No, I don't. No, thank you." And he's like, "Okay." And so I go inside and I sit down, and we're at the very back. There's probably 100 people there, which is a fair number. Anyway, so they're playing some music. It's awesome. We're like, "This is great." We see other people, families. We're like, "This is fantastic." And we pull all our stuff out. We just start to get out. Naomi's dancing around. She's so excited. Chelsea's like smiling. We're pumped. She's wearing baby, so we're good to go. And then all of a sudden I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's like the rabbi. And he's like, "Here, your kippah." And I'm like, "No, thank you." And he's like, "You need to put it on." And I'm like, "No, I don't." He's like, "You need to put this on." I'm like, "Yeshua is my covering." I'm like, "Yahuwah is my covering. I don't need a hat. I don't need a hat to have my covering on. I don't like being forced to put things on like this, you guys. I don't, especially now when the traditions from which these are come from are not a part of the Torah. I've read the Torah very diligently. You're not required to do that. Nowhere in the entire Bible are you required to do that. Nowhere does it say that in the scriptures. And I adhere to the scriptures the same as this guy has, and yet he is telling me that I have to put this thing on as a right to be in his place. And I was like, "No, I don't need to put that on." He's like, "You need to put this on if you want to be in this building." And I was like, "Okay, then. We don't want to be in this building then." And so we have to pack up our stuff. And he literally is like, "You need to get out." And so we do. We like pack up our stuff and he sends us out into the pouring rain. And you're like, you've got to be kidding me right now. You're going to drive out this family, like literally orphan families here, into the rain. The sojourner, straight up. Like we literally are the sojourners. This is one of those moments where you realize sometimes you might just be sent somewhere to test them. Like sometimes that's why we experience persecution, because it's not about you. It's about testing that person, testing that fellowship, testing that congregation, testing that people's faith and see whether or not they're going to do the things that it says in the book to do. Like the basic fundamentals of what true, pure, undiluted worship is. Like these are the things that he wants. This is the stuff that this is wrongness in the place where should be right ruling. And we go and we're out there, right? It's dumping rain. I'm like, what the heck are we going to do now? Okay. I look over, the only covered little area has some picnic tables out in front of it, is in front of a tattoo parlor, tattoo shop. Okay. So we go and sit down in front of this place and we're just sitting there like, you've got to be kidding me. This is crazy. We are trying to go worship Yahuwah. We're trying to go gather together and to be ministered to, honestly, because we needed it. And we're getting kicked out into the rain by it instead. And we're sitting in front of this tattoo parlor. You guys, this place had the most graphic, R-rated, X-rated tattoo stuff. Anton LaVey, who's like Church of Satan, the Temple of Satan guy, all over this tattoos, demons, all kinds of nasty stuff. Let's just put it there. All over on their like display board. The tattoo parlor people come out and they're like, do you guys need anything? They're like, we see it's raining out here. You got a family. Do you guys need anything? You need water? You need snacks? You guys okay? You need to come in? You guys can come in too if you need to. We're sitting there just like, holy smokes. Goodness gracious, y'all. Hospitality is being extended to us by the people that are tattooing Satans on people. Do you understand? Like the level of brokenness in our churches, in our fellowships, in the congregations is so obvious, is so relevant. We must understand something. The Father sends out people, camouflaged people, to do his bidding, to test and evaluate where people are at. And you know what? Understand, it says sometimes you're entertaining angels unaware, messengers unaware. That sometimes he's like, be careful how you treat other people, especially those strangers, because you don't know. Some of them could be angels, you know? Some of them are just people who have the Ruach of Yah on them, who are like sons and daughters of his kingdom, ambassadors who represent him. So be careful how you treat other people, you know? It was one of those very revelatory moments in my life of understanding that, you know what? Things are very broken. And on one side of it, I can be bitter, and I was a little bitter about that for a good while, you know, and just felt very slighted and wrong and shake my fist at it. But you know what? At the end of the day, these are opportunities for us to learn and to take in for us individually how we can be ministers to others, how we can be a servant to those that come across our life who might be the very broken, might be the very dejected, most difficult people in our life. And you know what? They might be the very ones who need our hospitality most. They might be the very ones who are going through, who have been through impossible nightmares, worse than anything you could even begin to imagine. There is so much suffering that's been stored up in the body, so much suffering that needs to be shared out, because we each should be carrying one burden. And some of us are carrying many, 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 many burdens. And we need others to come alongside us and help us to lift those burdens off our shoulders, to set them at the Messiah's feet, and to take on the burdens that we are accountable for each and every day. Right now, I've got a lot of burdens in my family. There's a big, heavy responsibility in my house for me taking care of my family and just trying to meet their needs. It's a very heavy burden. And you know what? On my mind, though, to be transparent with you, the burdens I want to bear are out there. I want to do ministry like this. I want to minister to people. I think about that big world and all of the brokenness. I read emails of people pouring out the most incredibly brutal, painful things that they have gone through, being vulnerable with stuff. It is exhausting. It is brutal in so many ways to go through it. But I understand how powerful it is to just let them be heard, to just let their voices be acknowledged, to give them compassion where somebody did not, to extend to them loving kindness and mercy where they need it most. These are the things we all need to extend in our life. Thank you guys for coming along a little journey with me as we come out of the poop talk and into the good talk. I love you all. Thank you so much for your prayers for my family and your steadfast support. My loving wife is coming in to bring me. Are you bringing me food right now? You're very sweet. I would love that. Thank you. Thank you. Look at this. Let's just talk about the good stuff. My wife reinvigorated her sourdough game. She's back in action. If you haven't watched her sourdough video, it's alive. That's what it's called. It's alive. Sourdough. Do it. Change your life instantly. You see how my mood just lifted? Oh, it's because I'm going to get some living bread. Fermented goodness in my life and eggs. This is where it started for the Reynolds clan. Paper plates, by the way, have also been one of those things that have been a staple in our house. Dishes. Just dishes. Dishes. Bottles and babies and dishes. Little things. Our life has become a little more disposable than we ever thought it would be. We've made a lot of compromises in areas we never thought we would. My babies sleep in bathrooms a lot. Just for reference, literally. Sleep in bathrooms. Turn on dryers. Put a baby in this bathroom. Get the dryer going. With the dryer balls. Things they don't tell you when you're growing up. Like, this is literally what your life can be like, where you sit in the dark in a bathroom trying to put a baby to sleep. Rock a baby down in the bathroom. Turn on the fan. You sit there, make this noise. Shh. 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 I do that more than you can even imagine. It's on default repeat. I have recordings of that I made at the ocean to just play in there. Just my babies fall asleep really good when I'm around flowing water. It's hilarious. They go to sleep like immediately, conditioning them. We also play the audio Bible like crazy, so my children just listen to the audio Bible day and night. It just goes in my house 24/7. Because otherwise, you're just screaming other words. It sucks. You'll say some of the meanest things you've ever said to a baby. You're like, wow. Wake up in the morning, you're like, jeez, I'm sorry. I was so not happy last night. I'm very sorry for what I said to you. I love you. I know I said those things, but I didn't mean them. I love you so much. You just drive me crazy. It's lots of that. Anyways, I'm going to eat a meal. I'm going to send some emails. I'm going to edit videos, sign books, and labor on. Go change poopy diapers for a lot longer. It's the dad life. Yeah, it's the dad life. I'll tell you, I love it when they're older. I endure it when they're younger because I love them. And I'm praying for the day, like a farmer who's looking at the seed in the ground, not knowing what it's going to germinate into, hoping and praying and believing that it will be a very fruitful tree in its end, because there's a lot that's been sown into the soil, a lot of sacrifice. That's, at the end of the day, what I see. I am sacrificing all of my life, all of my sanity, all of what I tried. I want to avoid. I want to avoid every single day and night raising these babies. I want to avoid it like the plague. But you know what? I'm fasting as an act of my will. I'm fasting the things that I once ran to, like the other bottles I used to run to. I'm choosing to still be in the moment. I'm choosing to still be here and show up every day for my family, even though I don't want to, even though I want to walk out the door and not come back for a long time, show up again many months later when they're not so difficult. This is the season when we invest the most, believing and hoping we will get to see the good fruits of our labor in the future. I love you all. Thank you so much for your incredible encouragement, your nonstop support. We appreciate you guys. Live vibrantly every single day of your life. The days may be evil, but you are born for such a time as this. I'll talk to you soon.